A businessman needs to look at cost from various points of view. At least he needs to take care of three sets of costs, knowing fully well that they may overlap each other. These costs are economic cost, accounting cost, and engineering cost. In formal economic theory, costs are taken as a function of output. Output is produced by combining the use of fixed factors and variable factors. In the long run, when all factors are variable, all costs are variable cost. But in the short run, the economists make a distinction between fixed cost and variable costs. The total cost of any output is the value of all the inputs used in its production. Cost, therefore, will rise or fall as the ratio of output to input changes. In the short run, just as the total costs are the aggregate of total fixed and variable costs, the average costs are also the aggregate of average fixed costs and average variable costs. Marginal costs refer to change in cost, obviously in variable part of the cost. In practice, variable costs remains proportionate to total output up to a point at which engineered total plant capacity is reached. Any attempt to increase output beyond the rated plant capacity generally results in a sharp increase in variable cost. This is because management tries to use variable inputs to compensate for the non-availability of fixed inputs. The schedule presented here illustrates different types of costs in the short run. In the long run, the firm has time to adapt its plan, fully implying that all inputs are variable. The long-run average costs, or LAC curve, is the cost curve showing the average cost of production at different level of output, turned out by different sized plants. This shown in the following diagram under the assumption that the number of possible short run is infinitely large. That is, plant of virtually any size can be built. The LAC turns out to be an envelope curve. That is, it is tangential to different short-run cost curves appropriate to different sized plants. In the general case, the LAC does not pass through minima of the short-run average cost curves. However, if the SAC curves have steep negative slope followed by sharp upturns at full capacity output, which is also the minimum cost position, and if the slope of LAC curve is flat, then the latter virtually passes through the minima of the short-run curve. The long-run marginal cost, or LMC curve, is obtained by taking the first derivative of the long-run total cost function with respect to output. Unlike the LAC, which envelopes the SAC, LMC is not the envelope for short-run marginal costs, or SMC curves. The short and the long-run marginal cost curves may cross each other, unlike the short and long-run average cost curves, which may touch each other but never cross. The long-run marginal cost curve is the focus of those points on the short-run marginal cost curves, which corresponds for optimum plant size for each output. When a firm expands in size by increasing the scale of its output, certain cost advantages accrue to the firm. These advantages are known as internal economies and may have various types such as technical, commercial, financial, managerial, and risk spreading. Thus, when the scale of firm increases, the average cost of production falls because of a number of internal economies. When these internal economies are fully exploited, the LAC reaches the minimum. However, if the firm continues to increase in size indefinitely, soon several problems begin to emerge and they might lead to internal diseconomies of scale. The point at which the long-run average costs are at a minimum is the optimum size of the firm. In other words, as a firm grows large and larger, all sort of cost disadvantages occur and therefore the long-run average costs start rising. The concept of internal diseconomies is an operationally significant concept. It explains how small firm exists alongside long firms in the same industry. There are actually three major differences between large and small firms that can be discussed as differences in techniques of management, in techniques of production, and in the degree of capitalization. In addition to internal economies and diseconomies of scale, there are external economies and diseconomies. The external economies occur when there are physical and cost advantage that results from a general development of the industry. When the industry expands, it offers scope of specialization and skill formation and for lateral and vertical integration. As the growing industry gets localized in a geographical area, more other industries are attached to that area. Simultaneously, investments in other industrial activities are induced. These are external economies in the market sense. In such cases, special technical schools for training skilled labor are established. Research institutions are set up, equipment manufacturers build their plants, ancillary units grow in numbers. There is an interchange of technical information and ideas that go through both formal and informal channels. Such external economies are very general in character, and therefore all firms within the industry have equal access to them. The external economy may get converted into external diseconomy when the industry expands in size indefinitely and the control of the industry becomes a problem. Environmental pollution is a good example of external diseconomies, as a result of which private as well as social costs of production may increase. When a railway line is constructed between two stations, all firms across the railway line get transport cost advantage in moving their cargo. This is an external economy. However, when this railway line is available due to public investment, a firm may undertake private investment to construct its own feeder line to get better advantage of public rail line. In the same way, when the rural electrification program is undertaken in a village, the sarpanch may get the electric pole put up in front of his house. When the banks provide soft loans to small and marginal farmers, some big farmers, because of political connection, may manage to get these loans. All these are examples of internalized external economy, that is, privatized public benefits. Everyone wants to pass on the private discomforts to public. It is like spreading influence one is suffering from. Many chemical plants produce a lot of pollutants and then discharge the same in either water or air. Thus many private costs are often passed on to the society. The dirt and the filth discharged by a cluster of slums in front of posh residential areas is a typical example of externalized internal diseconomies. Economies and diseconomies can also be explained diagrammatically. In contrast to the concept of economies of scale, we have the concept of economies of scope. Economies of scope exist where the same equipment can produce multiple products more cheaply in combination than separately. The basic argument is that cost efficiency in production process is brought about by variety rather than volume. Thus, production diversification, which is incorporated within the given scale of plant, offers better cost advantage to manufacturers. Economies of scope are measured by the ratio of average cost to marginal cost when production process turns joint products or multiple products. Despite the measurement difficulties, the economies of scope of concept has provided a new logic for production, and it stands in sharp contrast to old concept of economies of scale. The table shows the difference between the economies of scale and the economies of scope. The production manager and his team members are required to guide their workforce by stating the production target, production schedules, product mix, and so on. Critical to all these is the optimum output decision. The concept of optimum scale of output or optimum size of plant is founded on the discussion of theoretical cost functions. The scale of output or the size of plant is economically optimum when average costs equal marginal costs. And this happens at the minimum point on the average cost curve, assuming U-shaped average cost curve. This definition holds true for both short run and long run. Since there are no fixed costs in the long run, at the point of optimum, the average variable costs are equal to marginal costs. Other economic costs include production costs and selling costs, between which the production cost includes the cost of inputs. After production, there are distribution and selling costs. Example, inventory carrying costs, cost of transport, and cost of sales. Then, there are real costs and money costs. Costs are often measured in terms of money. In terms of money spent on purchase, procurement, processing, and so on. Sometimes such money expenditure only measure the nominal costs, which are different from the real costs. The real costs are measured in constant prices, but the nominal or money costs are measured in current prices. Costs are also measured in terms of outlay spent. However, money sacrificed does not always measure the actual sacrifices. The cost of sacrificed alternatives cannot always be measured in terms of money. Some of these costs do not have pecuniary counterparts or measures. Earlier, we have referred to them as opportunity costs. Then there are private costs and social costs. Some costs are not privately incurred.
The whole society may pay for the location of an airport in the heart of the city. These are social costs. Example, noise pollution, air pollution, accident proneness of the area, limit to the height of the building constructed around the airport.